Hey headphone people, MrAyrit here, back with another comparison. This one is all about Hifiman, specifically entry-level Hifiman headphones, or what I would consider to be entry-level Hifiman headphones, I guess, and which one you should maybe go for, because Hifiman has a lot of headphones out there, and if you've been watching the channel at all lately, you know I'm turning into a bit of a Hifiman fanboy. So how do you pick between all of their models? Well, hopefully this will help you out with that. So I've got 3 different models to kind of review and compare today. So quick disclaimer here, one of the models is the Deva Pro, which Hifiman did send out. The other 2 headphones I have are the 400 SE and the 5XX, which I purchased myself. So thank you to Hifiman for sending out the Deva Pro. And, let's kind of dig in here and just talk about these headphones and what you get with them. So you're going to notice, like, if we go through all these headphones, you're going to notice a lot of similarities between them. One being the cable. So if I grab the kind of the standard Hifiman cable here, this is what you're going to get. It's rubber shielding, or depending on which model you get, you may get like a cloth braided shielding on it, but they're more or less the same. They're decent cables. There's nothing really to note about them. Terminate in a 3.5, and then they'll have some sort of a 1/4-inch adapter that comes with them here. The Deva Pro is the exception here because it's going to come with obviously the Bluetooth module here, which is their newest R2R version. Okay, and you can see it kind of just plugs right into the cup there, and we'll talk more about that here shortly. And then that one also comes with, I didn't open it up because I had another USB-C cable, but it's just a USB-C cable that plugs into a regular USB port on a computer, because this little DAC here, it can be used Bluetooth or it can be used hardwired, and it does make a difference. So again, we'll get more into that a little bit later. Let's dig into the build a little bit of these and kind of talk about it. So we got a little bit of a range here. First, let's take a look at the 400 SE. This is what I would consider like your stock Hifiman build, right? It's plastic. It feels decent pads, reasonably comfortable headband, pretty lightweight. I don't love this build, but it's adequate, right? It's adequate, certainly adequate for $100, $120, whatever you are currently finding these at. I should note I bought mine open box Amazon, I think for $110. And so you can get these for right around $100 if you're buying on the used market. Then let's take a look at the 5XX. And this one, it retails for about $180 from drop. This has, you'll notice, the same kind of cup style as the Deva Pro does, which it even has kind of like the notch that like the little Bluetooth thing would come out on. Not that the Bluetooth works on this, but it's got kind of that same shape, and well, it is exactly the same. They're just different colors right now. What's of note of my 5XX? One, I bought these for about $140, $150 used. I actually have the older 400i suspension headband on these because these came with kind of this older style Hifiman headband, which I hate this thing, right? I don't like it at all. I think this is a terrible headband style. Obviously, I've got Dakota nuggets on it before I switched. That was the only way I was able to get it to work for my head. But this is just a chintzy, cheap headband. Don't like that at all. So it's like the same thing that comes on like the 4XX, or even I think my Edition XX had that same thing on it. But so I swapped it out with this headband. I actually bought the 400i's just so I could have this headband to try with different Hifimans, because I really like the HE6SEv2, and so I've got that on hand as well. And I thought, maybe this would end up going on that, but I thought I'd try it on this one for the time being. And with this on here, I love this headphone. Like, it fits wonderfully. It's super comfortable. I don't know why they're going away from this headband strap. I prefer this over like this style too. So, I mean, it's an option. You can swap them out. But, you know, you got to spend the money. I think it's like $75 if you buy the headband from Hifiman. So that's a little bit additional cost. That's why I ended up just buying 400 eyes for like $100 used. And then I figure I have the headband if I want to use it. I'll do the 400 eye review later just because it's not in production anymore. The 400 SE is the newer version of that, is my understanding of it. Okay. Now, when we get to the Deva Pro, it's kind of a mashup between those two, right? It's got the same cups as the 5XX, but it's got the headband style of like the 400 SE and a lot of the newer Hifimans out there. Pads are, I think, the same as on the 5XX. The Deva Pro, it retails for about, what, $300, $350, somewhere right around that mark. So basically what I'd say is you're buying with the Deva Pro, you're buying about like $150 headphone. Like essentially you're buying something really similar to the 5XX, but then you're paying for the Bluetooth amp DAC that's in here. So kind of a big question of mine as I was doing my testing here and you know, going through all these is I was trying to figure out, you know, is that DAC amp worth it, honestly? So what's the quality compare like to something, you know, like $100, you know, amp DAC like the shit full of 4 here? Or, you know, what's it compare like to, say, like my X-Can, which is Bluetooth amp DAC, or like a BTR5? So that's kind of the big question that's kind of surrounding this here. And we'll talk more about that as we get into the sound here. So the build is pretty equivalent across all of them. 5XX is probably the worst just because of this headband. And then I would say I kind of like the fit and feel of the Deva Pro and those cups and pads a little bit better than the 400 SE. And the Deva Pro and the 5XX are the lighter. So I found them to be the more comfortable. But as far as fit, the 5XX with this older style headband is my favorite by far. All right, so build is pretty equivalent, but let's talk about sound. So I'll start off by saying the 5XX and the Deva Pro are very, very, very similar. All right, we'll come back to them here in a moment. Let's talk about the 400 SE sound-wise here first. Now, I feel like at $100, this is fine. It's fine for $100, right? Like, I don't know that there's a whole lot that competes with this at $100. You know, at that price, you're looking at maybe like you're competing with like a Schipp 9600, in which case I feel like you're going to get a lot more clarity, a lot more detail out of this. I do think the timbre suffers a bit on this. It's not quite as natural sounding as the other two. It comes off a little bit thin to me. And I also don't feel like the imaging and separation is nearly as good as these other two models. It's also not as wide. So there's definitely some trade-offs you're making for that $100 price tag. I also don't feel like this scales as well with other gear. So it's a balanced sound overall. You know, it's good for $100, but I think it's like, if that's only your budget, $100, and you're not planning on buying any amps or DACs or anything like that, maybe you look at the 400 SE, right? This is just if you're on an extremely limited budget, right? You would go with this. Because when you step up to the 5XX, you're getting a lot better imaging and separation. You're getting a better timbre, more natural timbre. You're getting more clarity. You're getting still a great balanced sound, but just a lot more detailed, a lot better resolving. It's better across the board. So in my opinion, if you're looking for a wired setup, rather than going for the $100 400 SE, I'd probably look for like a used 5XX. And I thought this sounded really good. I thought it scaled okay with better equipment. So, you know, I spent a lot of time listening to it through the Singzer. I thought it sounded really good and clean through that. But even through like the full of 4, I thought it sounded good. But even just through the Apple dongle, like I like this better with the Apple dongle than the 400 SE. So if you were trying to choose between like, do I get a 400 SE and like a full of 4? I would say no. I would just get like a dongle and just get the 5XX if it were me. I thought the sound quality was better through the dongle with these than with an amp through these. So again, very limited recommendation window for the 400 SE. If you want a taste of what Hifimans can do and you just want to dip your toe in, you can find these for a good deal. I say go for it, give it a shot. But again, if you can find these for just a little bit more, I think that's what you're going to want to do. Now, where this comparison becomes a little more interesting is when we're talking about the Deva Pro versus the 5XX, because again, I think they're both sound quality wise about the same. I would maybe give the nod to the 5XX. I just feel like it's a little more balanced, a little more detailed. I like the presentation just a little bit better here. The tuning, I mean, it could be the exact same drivers in here. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case, just slightly different tunings. I don't know if that's the case or not, but they sound very, very similar. But I just always thought the 5XX was a little bit better when I was comparing them side by side on the same sources. But what really becomes interesting is when you start comparing the Deva Pro with its Bluetooth amp DAC versus the 5XX with some other gear. So when I started doing that, what I found out was, like, I think the Deva Pro gets the nod in sound quality until you get past, I thought the Deva Pro sounded better with its Bluetooth than like the 5XX with the BTR5. I thought the 5XX and better than the 5XX with the Apple dongle. I thought the 5XX pulled ahead when I put it on the full 4. I thought it pulled ahead when I put it on the BTR5, my XCAN, my iFi XCAN, and then when I went to like a full desktop, amp, I thought the 5XX took it for me. The Bluetooth amp DAC on the Deva Pro is good. Like, it's good, and if you want that Bluetooth and you don't want to deal with, a wire running to like a little amp DAC like the XCAN in your pocket, then this is a good option. If you want a little more flexibility in an amp DAC that you can use with other things, again, I love that XCAN for a Bluetooth amp DAC, and then you can try it with a bunch of different headphones, right? But then again, what becomes a little more interesting is when I moved to a desktop setup, right? And I plugged the Deva Pro with its Bluetooth amp DAC straight into my computer, in which case I feel like it was really, really, really close to the 5XX with the full of 4. Like, I was going back and forth between them, and it was almost indistinguishable. I feel like the Deva Pro, like the mids are just a little bit more forward. It's not quite as well separated, and you lose like a little bit of soundstage and clarity, I feel like, with the Deva Pro compared to the 5XX. But I mean, it is close. I mean, you're really splitting hairs going back and forth between them. So again, if you want, the Deva Pro, I think, is an interesting proposition because it does give you the versatility of having, Bluetooth if you need that, which worked flawlessly as far as I could tell. It does give you the option to plug into a computer if you want to do that, and then it does give you the option to plug into other amps and DACs if you want to do that. So it gives you all that, but you have to pay that higher price point to get all that functionality. Whereas with the 5XX, you're getting what I would say as good or a little bit better sound quality, but then you have to buy the Bluetooth amp DAC, or you have to buy a desktop setup, or you know what I mean? You have to spend that extra money to get those things, but then you're free to expand and try different headphones and things in the future, which, I like, obviously, with all these headphones and stuff that I have, I like having that possibility. But if you want to just have a simple solution, get yourself into a high fidelity headphone that is very versatile, I think the Deva Pro package is pretty compelling as far as that goes. So What would my preference be? I mean, I think for me, because I already have the Bluetooth amp DACs and things like that, and because I have desktop amps and all that stuff, like for me, I feel like the 5XX is more appropriate. But again, if you're just getting into this hobby and you don't want to experiment with a whole bunch of stuff and you just want to see what audiophile sound is like, and you want to have the convenience of Bluetooth and the convenience to be able to plug into your computer and do all that, then I think the Deva Pro is a compelling choice. And then again, I think the 400 SE kind of lags behind, but at $100, you know, I don't know what else you would compare it to for like a planar magnetic, right? Definitely you'd have to be searching on the used market, and you're still probably not going to find anything for this price point. So if you just want to test out that Hifiman sound for an SE, but I would probably recommend saving up and getting the 5XX if you have other gear or if you plan to buy other desktop gear. And then if you just want the all-in-one, go with the Deva Pro. All, I think, good products at their price points. And, you know, Hifiman, I've been super impressed with them lately. In just almost everything I try of theirs sounds really, really good and is super competitive at the price. I think that's going to wrap it up for this review. You know, if you have questions, comments, conflicting opinions, feel free to drop those down below. If you're interested in more comparisons, reviews like this, consider subscribing to the channel. I'm doing a couple videos a week here. I will have, speaking of Hifiman stuff, they also sent me the Aria Stealth Edition. So that review will be coming in the near future as well. And that is a really good headphone. Just spoiler alert, right? So yeah, I appreciate you being here, and I will see you in the next one.